Yes, it's Tuesday.
It is the first Tuesday of 2020.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Amber.
And this is another episode of
True Crime and Chill.
So it is December already, and holy God, is this year really ending?
2020 is finally coming to a close, and I think a lot of people are really excited about that.
I have to agree, because let me tell you, the last 5 years of 2020 has been freaking nuts. And you cannot tell me that it has not felt like 5 years. However, November just flew by.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's been insane. It's been insane.
I think in retrospect, 2020 wasn't a year to get everything that you want, but I think it was a year to be thankful for all that we have.
I mean, we could definitely tell who the pessimist of this group is, because I'm going to say yes, that's true, but
Well, one of the hardest parts for me was watching my son have to be content to play by himself. Normally during the summer, he gets to go to summer camp.
Oh my God, summer camp. Okay, so I was in Girl Scouts until I was like 14, I think, or whatever. Maybe a little bit younger than that. But yeah, we would go camping all the freaking time. All the freaking time. I loved going camping. Like, I honestly would have been so bummed if like all of my camping trips got canceled because of a virus, like when I was young. It's been insane. Like, I've had friends whose like kids have like canceled school trips, all this stuff. I'm like, oh, you poor people.
Yeah. Camp was a really big deal for me when I was growing up. Like, legitimately, I was even given the nickname of Camp Geek. And my last year working at Camp Willowchee, I got to be director.
Does Port Angeles even have a Camp Willowchee?
Not anymore. No. It was run by the Wanda-Fuca Council of Campfire out at Camp David Jr. But okay. They're no longer the Wanda-Fuca Council. They're part of the Snohomish Council, and they have their own campground that they own, so they don't have to rent it from the park. So
okay, but what the heck is Willowchee?
It stands for Work, Love, Cheer.
Okay. Okay, I guess. Cute.
It's a campfire thing. It was a really big part of my childhood, as was Camp David Jr. on Lake Crescent.
You know, I never really got into campfire. Like, I was always Girl Scouts for me, and then Rainbow when I did it and stuff. So, like, that was just, yeah. But, I mean, God, Lake Crescent. I miss those lakes. Those could be, like, episodes on itself, but...
Especially Camp David Jr. As I've gotten older, I've learned a lot of interesting things about that place.
That place is freaking haunted, and you can't tell me different.
That's one of the places I've seen a full spectral, actually. So, but we're not here to talk about Camp David Jr., but rather a legend that circles around a statue sitting at Camp David Jr.
Yes, the Lady of the Lake.
That's right. Before I start, I do want to get into two things. First, the statue at Camp David Jr. is not really the Lady of the Lake. Rather, it's left over from when the camp was a, let's just say, spa and sanitarium.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, okay? The camp is really beautiful. Like, the camp is absolutely gorgeous. So, like, if you ever make your way up to Washington and where Camp David Jr. is, I think everybody would love it. However, the history of the place is kind of dark. Yeah. It's a little inaccurate.
Yeah, no, I know. But at this point, I think it's important to get to the disclaimer.
Yes. Okay, my favorite part. We are not monster hunters, ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, historians, or any kind of law enforcement professionals, even though I am studying to be one.
Right now, we are just simply fans of true crime, just like you.
And if you don't like what we have to say or how we say it, then you don't have to listen to us. We will not be bothered.
Nope. But if you do like what we hear, however, we have episodes that drop each week on your favorite listening platforms and fun swag for true crime fans on our website, truecrimeandchill.com.
Water bottles.
Yes.
And I think we have covered all that, though. Let's get started.
Let's. But I want to start with first thanking my friend Ryan and his team who are working on a Lady of the Lake documentary. He shared a lot of this information with me, and I was able to create the most thorough story possible. So, Alex, what do you know about the Lady of the Lake? Like, what scary stories did you grow up hearing and believing?
Too many. Okay, so if you are from Port Angeles, or if you lived in Port Angeles for like any amount of time, you've heard the Lady of the Lake story. Like, we're obviously gonna get in depth with it and everything, and like with the history behind it and stuff. But you've heard the Lady of the Lake story, and there are thousands of like
variations
things out there. I really honestly think that like my stepmom told me about it for the first time. Like, I really think that it was not like it was a book I found at my Aunt, Mom, Papa's house, her parents' house, and stuff. And I remember asking her about it. But like, one of the like stories that I remember hearing from it was, if you drive around the lake at night when it's a full moon and you chant her name, she's gonna like appear out of the water and chase after you. Or like, if you like go down to the lake and chant her name, she'll like suck you into the lake and stuff. And it's like, I remember like if we would like be coming back from like, because like my dad used to fish in Nia Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So we would take the route around the lake to get out to Nia Bay to go drop him off at his boat and everything whenever he had to go out fishing.
Right.
And so sometimes we would be coming back at night. And I remember I'd be like in the back seat, peeking over the window, just like looking, like, she gonna do it? And I'd be like afraid to do it and everything and stuff, because it's like, I was 7 years old. I didn't want to get sucked into the lake by some crazy ghost.
Right. Yes. Well, the Lady of the Lake was a real woman who was murdered and discovered with her body resembling soap. And this is her very real story. Hallie Brooks Latham was born on January 7th, 1901 in Greenville, Kentucky, to a large family. Her parents were hardworking. She had Finis Latham and Mary Bunny Latham. And as luck changed, the family settled in South Dakota, where she ended up married to Floyd James Spraker in 1919.
Ah, yes, the times of young marriage where they married their kids off as soon as they hit puberty.
Well, I mean, you didn't live as long then, so.
Yeah.
Well, that marriage fell apart in the late 1920s, and Hallie took on jobs to earn her own freedom, but she remained legally married to Spraker until his death on August 16th of 1931. Soon after, she remarried another South Dakota man, Donald Bruce Strickland, in 1932.
So she was about 32 at this time.
31.
She was about 31 at this time.
Mm-hmm. And with one of those men, she had a daughter. Now, I was reading it was with her first husband, but if that's the case, then she took the last name of her second husband when she married him.
Yeah.
So the Stricklands moved out to Seattle in 1933 or 34, where they lived above their restaurant at 813 East Pine Street. The marriage was not good and was over by 1935. Hallie set out to Port Angeles and took a job working as a waitress at the Lake Crescent Tavern, which is now known as the Lake Crescent Lodge.
Which is honestly still there. And quite honestly, this poor girl's dating history sounds like mine so far.
There's lots of history around the lake and in Port Angeles and with all of us. Hallie met, while she was working at the Lake Crescent Tavern, she met Monty J. Illingsworth sometime in 1936. Monty was a beer truck driver and was a known ladies' man. They quickly got married.
They really didn't waste any time.
No, they didn't. From what reports show, the marriage was pretty violent. Both parties physically and verbally abused each other. 5 months into their marriage, the couple got into a pre-dawn fight that was so rough, the police were called to break it up. She often came into work with black eyes and bruises on her arms and neck. It's reported that she often punched back or even bit his arm on one occasion. She was also incredibly jealous and infuriated that Monty did not quit being a womanizer and sometimes interrupted his affairs and would attack him and his mistresses, real or supposed.
Okay, so I am always the first person to be like, look, if you punch a guy, you deserve to get hit by a guy. Like, if you punch a guy for absolutely no reason, like, if, like, I have had guy friends who, like, their girlfriends would literally beat on them and they just wouldn't do anything because they knew if they did, like, they'd get arrested and stuff. So I'm a firm believer of, if you want to hit like a man, you're going to get hit back like a man.
Right.
However, I am also a very firm believer in domestic violence relationships make you act crazy. And that's something that you see with a lot of abusers, is where they will get you to the point where you're yelling back and you're hitting back and you're punching back and you're assaulting them back, essentially. But then it looks like you're the crazy one because they're standing there calm and collected and cool. And that kind of sounds like what this guy was doing.
Well, I mean, he was a womanizer and clearly an abuser because she she would go to work with marks on her. But, I just from the history I have of her so far, she clearly was maybe not the easiest person to live with. I mean, if she went through many husbands already.
3 husbands.
In that day and age, that's really pretty unusual.
Especially since one of them died.
Well, she stayed married, even though they separated, but she was legally married to him until he died.
Yeah.
I mean, you also have to remember that you had the flu in 1918. You had tuberculosis. Like there were lots of things. On December 21st, 1937, Hallie visited her sister Lois Bally in the afternoon, and nothing eventful was said or unusual when she left, is what's reported. Monty was planning on going to a beer party at Fort Worden. Hallie did not approve, and they had a massive fight. Monty went anyway, and that night, Hallie went to a holiday party at the Annex Hotel at 231 West 1st Street. It's now known as Bar 9.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where Bar 9 was.
It's downtown across from the Armory Square, kitty corner from.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Where we went karaokeing, is that the place?
No. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know where that is.
When I was young and really partying it up, it was called Crazy Fish.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I remember that. I actually remember. I mean, don't get me wrong. I obviously was not old enough to party, but I do remember that it was called Crazy Fish.
They had $2 tequila shots on Tuesdays. It was.
Oh God. Yeah.
It was. Tuesdays were great.
Tuesdays were fun.
Speaking of drinking,
Tuesdays were for the tequila.
Yeah. Well, speaking of drinking, Hallie had several drinks at that party and got into a physical fight with another woman.
Of course she did.
Around 2 a.m., Hallie and a friend left the party, and Hallie reportedly hit another person as they left, clipped another car. She dropped her friend off, and she drove off alone, never to be seen alive again.
How did they discover she was missing?
Well, she was part of the waiters union, which was a thing at the time, and they took notice of her absence the following day and tried to report it, but little was done or said. Rumors over the coming weeks, possibly spread or encouraged by Monty, made it out that Hallie had left for Alaska or Canada with another man. Friends thought she may have left for Bremerton. Monty reportedly also contacted Lois Bally at her work in a cafe downtown and asked if she had seen Hallie, as she had been gone all night. He later dropped off Hallie's Christmas presents to her sister, her siblings, and Doris Strickland, Hallie's daughter. Monty was later seen in the household car, claiming to Earl Enos, the manager of his distribution company, that he was dropping off Hallie for the ferry to Port Ludlow as she was leaving him and Port Angeles. Monty soon left town with his new girlfriend and soon-to-be, at least common-law wife, Eleanor Pearson, for California. Eleanor was the daughter of a wealthy timber tycoon.
Okay, so there are some really big inconsistencies with this story, for one.
Yeah.
For, the fact that he was oh yeah, she went to Alaska or Canada, and then all of a sudden turns it around and says, oh no, I dropped her off at the ferry to Port Ludlow.
Right. Well, and the fact that she was last seen in person by somebody driving that car, and then later he was driving that car, means that she didn't just go missing willy-nilly.
Yeah, so she obviously would have gotten home and...
Right. On July 6th of 1940, so this is almost 3 years later, a woman's body floated to the surface of Lake Crescent in the Olympic National Park. It was discovered by two brothers who had been fishing that morning. The woman was wrapped in blankets and hog-tied with heavy rope. She had been strangled. The case was especially grim because of the condition of the body. The woman's face was unrecognizable, but her body had not decomposed. In a bizarre chemical reaction, the flesh had turned to a soap-like substance that could be scooped away, like putty.
Ugh.
Yeah, the condition is known as saponification. The soap-like condition resulted from minerals in the lake interacting with the fats in her body. The lake's near-freezing temperatures had virtually refrigerated the corpse for all that time.
And I would like to say this lake is freaking cold if you had never been into it.
Yep.
If you've never been in it. Like, even in the summer and like 95-degree weather, like,
yep,
it is cold.
Yeah.
So, is it Lake Crescent that, like, the bottom has never been found, or was that Lake Sutherland?
No, it is Lake Crescent. They have found the bottom, actually.
Oh,
We're going to get to that in
find
just
it?
a second, though.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
finish this little bit. The public's imagination was caught by this horrible discovery, and the murdered woman became known as the Lady of the Lake. It was a fitting image for a mystery woman who had emerged from Lake Crescent, a cold, as you said, deep lake that had a reputation for never giving up its dead.
Which is, a part of the story that a lot of us know. I mean, it is a deep lake. Like,
it's very deep. When they, about 3 years ago, they finally found the bottom, and it's deeper than 600 feet.
Oh yeah. Like, I remember when, because like Hallie's body isn't the only body that was in there. Like, I remember when divers found that car with the couple still inside of it and stuff with their fridge. I think it was like a fridge or a washing machine that they had just bought or something in the back of the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, and if, again, for those of you who've never been out to Lake Crescent, like, the roads are bad. Like, if you don't know how to,
under construction.
Yeah, if you don't know how to drive them, like, growing up, they were bad. People like the lake just go quick around. And this is before, like, the guardrails went up and stuff, too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
For the record, some of these spots are actually deep enough to hide the Space Needle in. If any of you guys have actually seen the Space Needle in person, you know that's pretty freaking deep.
Yeah, exactly. Originally, authorities believed she could be Marion Steffens, who was a botanist that had vanished the previous August with an intense search that had been carried out. The body was, The body was taken into Port Angeles, where a young medical student, Harlan McNutt, examined the body. He noted that the upper part of her face, her upper lip and nose were gone, and because her hands had been exposed, the tips of the fingers were gone. So there was no way to get any fingerprints and no way to tell what the woman looked like. A visual inspection of the body and a subsequent autopsy showed that the woman met a violent death. Her neck was bruised and discolored, and her chest showed evidence of extensive hemorrhage. She had been clearly beaten and strangled. There wasn't much to work with to identify the body, but there was a distinctive upper dental palate. Dr. Canavery, who examined the body, is quoted as saying, "I never saw a corpse just like this one before. The flesh is hard, almost waxy. She must be nearly as large as when she went into the water."
I vaguely remember seeing, like, photos of it.
Oh.
So, I remember when I was younger, the book that I had found, it was written by a local, like local storyteller and stuff who, like, researched Lady of the Lake and all that other stuff and everything put together. And there was a picture of Hallie's body in the book and stuff. And it's one that I sent you, and it's one that's going to go on our website, truecrimeandchill.com as well. But, and I mean, it's not gruesome. So if you look at it, you're not going to, like, be seeing, like, body parts and all that stuff. It's definitely not gruesome, but it definitely, like, shows, like, she's, like, very bundled in, like, this blanket and stuff like that. And I remember I was looking at it, and, like, she definitely does look extremely bloated. Like, I mean, she's been in the water for almost 3 years, but, like, she looks extremely bloated.
Actually, she doesn't look that bloated, especially when usually people who are thrown into water, like, get some of that water.
Well, like, I mean, to me, like, I feel like it's like all the pictures show her as a very petite woman, so she definitely does look a lot bigger than she was. So, like, she was extremely bloated for her size.
Sure. This particular examiner said she's almost the same size as when she went in the water, just from how cold it was.
Yeah. And it's weird. It's weird to look at, though. Yeah. It's weird because you, like, see her shoe on her foot and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes. And what you can't see in the photo, and what we'll talk about in a moment, she was wearing a green dress.
Yes. I do remember that. Yeah. But yeah, no, like, that's just, like,
I've got it up right next to me.
And the soap skin, and you're just kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, it's unique. So
it is.
Yeah. Sheriff Charlie Kemp set out a circular with a photo of the dental plate, and it would be a year until Dr. Albert J. McDowell, Hallie's dentist from South Dakota, recognized it and proved her identity.
I mean, because they probably didn't have.
Right. No, it wasn't
an
the
easier
same.
way of doing
Yeah,
it.
it wasn't like you had the internet, right? So that's also why he was able to just kind of spread this story and spread the rumors, because it wasn't like, he was posting it to the internet, right?
Yeah.
In the meantime, while they waited for the results, her body was buried in a common grave, or a pauper's grave.
Yep.
Clallam County persecuting attorney Max Church sent cables to Alaska in search of Hallie, but turned up nothing.
Why would they think it was Hallie?
So what they were doing was they were trying to find her, because they're trying to kind of piece together how she could have ended up in the lake, right? So first they reached out to Alaska to see if they could find her or any evidence of her being there, and nothing was there. Detective Hollis B. Fultz, a consulting criminologist with the Washington Attorney General, went to Bremerton in search of the alleged naval officer that Hallie ran off with, and found nothing. So suspicion fell onto Monty. Further investigation revealed that Hallie had never contacted any of her family, which the cops found suspicious. Also suspicious was the fact that Monty had filed for a divorce 5 months after she'd vanished, on the grounds of incompatibility, not desertion.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. You're being very suspicious.
That's right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, because, like, if I'm okay, like, if you are dead set on your wife, on saying your wife deserted you and all this stuff, wouldn't you just get a divorce based on that? Like, why would you say, oh, it's just not because we're incompatible? I mean, obviously you guys are not compatible, but like,
he would have had to wait too long for desertion.
Oh my God.
Yep. Monty Illingsworth was arrested at 1351 St. Louis Street, Long Beach. His mother and Eleanor Pearson visited him while he was waiting to find out if he'd be extradited to Washington. In his jail cell, Monty turned to face his mother and said, quote, "Mother, you know I didn't do it. I didn't." To which his mother replied, "Yes, I know you didn't, son." The couple had been living as husband and wife, Eleanor and himself, but Eleanor was bashful when asked if she was married to Monty, and she would neither confirm nor deny it. He was interrogated the day after his arrest by Clallam County persecuting attorney Max Church and Detective Hollis B. Fultz, the same ones we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
He claimed she was still alive, drinking the night she disappeared, and she had deserted him. Her things were gone. Despite the mounting evidence, he refused to relent, even when they suggested the killing was more accidental. The trial was set for February 24th, 1942 in Port Angeles. There was a scramble to replace the jurors who were uncomfortable with the death penalty, which out here we're a little bit softer, so it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it, and it's been proven, like, it costs more for the death to actually, like, everybody's like, oh, just kill them, and it's like, it does cost more in the end.
Because we have to
like, kill them, which is surprising, but...
Yeah. The trial became a bit of an entertainment for the city and a sensation in Los Angeles. The courtroom was packed, people even bringing lunches and knitting. Joseph Johnson, Monty's attorney, brought witnesses on the stand that included Monty's new wife and mother that claimed they had seen and or interacted with Hallie after 1937, but they were vague and unsupported. James Johnston, Hallie's brother-in-law, formally ID'd Hallie, which her body. Johnston also questioned the possibility of the corpse staying preserved and grilled Dr. McDowell. Jesse Hudson Knapp, a clerk at Montgomery Ward, had sold Hallie the green dress that was on the body and pointed out that the belt was cinched unusually tight because of her naturally small waist. Harry Brooks, who owned a resort near Lake Crescent Tavern, also reported he had given Monty about 50 feet of rope when he said he was having truck issues. The fibers matched the ropes on Hallie.
Okay, so the rope could easily imply premeditation. After all, like, with the existence of and running off with Eleanor Pearson, it really just does make sense that, like, she came home that night and, like, they continued their fight and he just snapped.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially since there was evidence that he had been sleeping with Eleanor before her death.
Right. And I agree with that. Though with how violent their relationship was, it really could have been a crime of passion. Like, maybe that night was the night he told her about Eleanor. Monty still maintained his defense of Hallie deserting him, but friends and coworkers who had gotten differing stories said otherwise. Monty shouted in his testimony that he didn't kill anybody. The jury took only 4 hours to decide, and on March 5th, 1942, a Washington jury found Monty Illingsworth guilty of second-degree murder. They had agreed on the lesser charge because they felt the crime had been one of passion and not premeditation. He was given a life sentence to Walla Walla, and Illingsworth was paroled on January 10th, 1951, after only 9 years. He returned to California, where he died in 1974. Hallie was reburied in an unmarked plot outside Vancouver on January 24th, 1942.
Okay, but why wouldn't they put her in a marked plot? Like,
I don't know.
That's my thing. Is like, why would?
Well, I mean, most of her family was gone, and really, it still cost. I actually saw the certificate that's on. There's a website where I grabbed it, and it'll be on truecrimeandchill.com. But there's a certificate that actually shows how much they paid to even have her buried in an unmarked grave, and it was $10 to have her buried and $30 to have her filled in.
Grave number, because I'm looking at it right now. It's like, it's hereby given in compliance with the provisions of Ordinance Number 884 of the City of Vancouver for interment of the remains of Hallie Illingworth in grave number 1, Lot 9, Section D at Park Hill Cemetery. Race white, sex female. It doesn't really have anything else about it. Burial $10. Gravel lot, Section D. Removal from Port Angeles. Like, and I mean, I get it. Like, $10 now isn't too bad. Like, I paid $800 just for my mom to get cremated,
right?
And that was through like the cremation alliance in Washington and stuff. Like, pro tip: if you ever need to get a family member cremated, don't go to a funeral home.
It just depends, really. It depends on a lot of things. I know some people prepay for their funerals and their wishes, and it's through a funeral home. So.
But no, I mean, I don't know. It's just, I get it. You know, it was the 40s and like, there really wasn't crack police job back then. It's a small town. Like, Port Angeles really wasn't all that big.
Well, and so what a lot of people may need to know is when it comes to Port Angeles and Forks, we are logging towns. We were founded on logging. We were founded on prostitution. And we were founded on booze. Like that's where industries were. So, you want to talk about like the Wild West, like that's what was here, like, and that lake is very big. Again, we'll have pictures if you've never seen it. The road that goes around it winds. My dad, so when I was growing up, my dad actually worked out in Forks from Port Angeles, like as a kid. He worked out in Forks. So he used to just whip around that lake. It used to make my mom so sick. Like she would always have to drive going around the lake because she wouldn't let my dad do it.
Oh yeah. Like I remember I always have to be in the passenger seat going around the lake because I get car sick really bad.
Mm-hmm. Oh, even in the passenger seat though, my mom would get sick because my dad drives around that lake so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, there is this speed limit and the cops do because there's so many deep corners. There's lots of places for the cops to hide. But there's just so many stories of death with this lake, like people who got lost when they were kayaking. There was the couple that drove off the road when they were on their way home from Port Angeles buying their washing machine. There's an ambulance that flew around the corner and the doors flew open and a guy in the gurney flew out and landed in the water.
No way.
There's a few different stories surrounding that one. The one my dad always told me, and anybody who knows my dad, he's a pretty hardcore local historian. That's the story he would always tell me. It's called Ambulance Corner, actually. But other people say the ambulance flew off the road and landed in the water, and they couldn't get the guy out of the back fast enough, so he died, but the drivers got out. Yeah.
So, fun fact. Israel Keys actually disposed of a body in Lake Crescent.
Yeah. He lived
in Nia Bay.
There's actually a couple different stories potentially leading to Israel Keys out here.
But this one was actually proven that this is one of the bodies that he disposed. He lived in Nia Bay.
Yep, he did. He lived in Nia Bay for a while. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what?
Yep.
What? Like,
yeah.
Port Angeles.
Yeah.
I was like, Port Angeles had one of the most prolific serial killers of all time living.
I mean, if you really think about it, we've had some pretty...
He lived in the same town as my dad fished in.
Yeah.
Like, Nia Bay is not a big area.
I've only been there once, and I've lived in Port Angeles most of my life.
I basically, so because my dad fished out of Nia Bay my entire life, like, I grew up basically spending my summers between Port Angeles and Nia Bay. Like, so that's insane.
Yeah. So for this particular documentary that I'm playing a very minor role. Like, they're interviewing me and I'm helping kind of do a little bit of groundwork over here for them because I'm here and they're in Seattle, right? Yeah. And so I posted on some of the local groups, hey, tell me your spooky stories about Lake Crescent. And it ended up being one of the most popular posts on the city page for about a week. It's got over 200 comments, which, that's a lot for us. And a lot of it was, the lady of the lake, the lady of the lake, the lady of the lake. And it was interesting because there were so many varying versions of the story just from there. There was the mention of Israel Keys. There was the mention of the couple. There was the mention of the ambulance. And then there were a few people who told some ghost stories, which is a whole other thing. But there's a lot of stuff that has happened out at Lake Crescent. And I mean, it's the second largest lake in Washington.
Yeah.
It holds so many secrets and so many dark stories. And while its beautiful blue waters may hold many secrets with its beauty, it did give up one, the body of Hallie Illingworth. Her story has been passed down through our generations and is one of the few legends that still captivates us here. However, there is still a mystery that remains. Was it a crime of passion, a crime of opportunity, or premeditated murder? What do you think?
Thank you for listening to True Crime and Chill. For more information, including case notes, photos, and sources, please visit our website at truecrimeandchill.com. You can also stay connected with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Look for new episodes from us each week on Tuesday.